Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew coming at you. What's up everybody? I'm in a good mood as you can tell. In this video, I'm going to talk about snus. That's right, the snus, whatever you prefer to call it. I'll talk about the little bit of differences between the US and here, why I do it, and or everything else with that. I have quit snus and I still keep that video up there, but I kind of jumped back off the horse after 2 years. I wish I would have stayed quit. I wish I wouldn't have gotten back on, but I did. I also think about how I appear on here as a role model. Like I'm not a perfect person, but I don't necessarily want to promote snus either. However, with that said, I do think it's maybe a safer option than cigarettes and some other things. And it's a part of Swedish society. And so if I don't talk about it, I think that's also silly. So I recommend not starting it because it is highly addictive. But if you're a snoozer like me, we can talk about it. Maybe I'll quit again at some other point. But for me, I grew up in the United States in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of people there that really chew tobacco. And I'm going to put one in here. So I have these 3 cans. I have the Yacht de Boreas. Oops. I have the Yacht de Boreas here, the General Vite, and this is called General 1. It's like a little bit more budget, but it's still good tobacco. I'm going to put one in my lip here so I can put one in and talk about it. I can't tell you how many videos I wanted to put a snus in the video but didn't want to do it. So this is like the first time I can do it, so that's kind of funny. So, anyways, growing up in the States, chewing tobacco, at least in western Pennsylvania where I grew up, was like near Pittsburgh, but also a little out in the country. It was very common to put like tobacco in. So when I was a little bit younger, I tried it a couple times, and when I worked as a dishwasher, a lot of the dishwashers chewed tobacco, so I tried it there. And the thing with chewing tobacco, at least American chewing tobacco, is you have to put it in your bottom lip, and you always have to have a bottle with you to spit in. There's just no way around it. And it's a bit gross, but I kind of got into just having something in my lip. And I'm going to go over the differences of this, because I definitely think snus is healthier than regular old chewing tobacco. And one really gross thing about chewing tobacco, and I'm sorry to gross you out, but if you have multiple bottles and you're doing this, and especially if you have a bottle you're drinking out of and you have a bottle that you're spitting into, there has been a few occasions in my life, and it happens to people, where you pick up the wrong bottle and you take a drink of it. Yeah, super gross. I know. So I kind of quit, but I did it off and on. And when I came to Sweden, I saw a bunch of people with these cans. We were having meetings together and stuff. I'm sitting there at work, and I see people like putting this stuff in. So I'm like, okay, what is this? And they were like, oh, it's snus. It's like a tobacco product. And I kind of knew what snus was because we just started to get snus in the States. I had tried it a couple times, but the quality is nowhere near as good as in Sweden. So finally, I tried one. And what I saw was, oh my gosh, in Sweden, you can snus, you can have tobacco, you can keep it in, and it's socially acceptable. Whereas like in the States with the chewing tobacco, everybody always kind of saw that as gross. And I guess the spitting part is really what makes it gross. But in Sweden, you can choose snus, and it's socially acceptable everywhere because you're not bothering anyone else. And maybe some people think it's gross, but I haven't really seen anybody be bothered by it so much. So it's very socially acceptable to snus. So when I knew that was the case, I kind of hopped on it and just started trying it and using it and getting in the habit of it. And for me, I think I just prefer having something in my lip. I think this goes back to when I chewed tobacco. And what I like about snus is that if you're going to be addicted to some form of nicotine, it might be a safer option than, for example, even vaping. And I think that nicotine on its own is very similar to caffeine. However, I do think you have to take good care of your teeth. And I've definitely noticed some issues with my gums from time to time, which is why I'd like to quit again at some point. But currently I work in a job where I'm sitting in front of a computer all day. And it's like really hard to not just put a snus in, sitting there at a computer all day. I also think that it's harder to quit snus than smoking cigarettes because you can snus everywhere and it's socially acceptable. So when you quit, your mind plays these mental tricks on you, And so everything reminds you of snoozing because you can literally have a snus in anytime you're doing anything. I typically snus like Vite snus overall, but this one I just put in was like a smart one. I find that I can actually stain my teeth a little bit. But I prefer more of the white snus because I feel like that's a little bit easier on my gums and lips. And I find good ones that have flavors, so that's nice. Now, if we're going to talk about Swedish snus versus American snus, a couple interesting things. One, like American Snus kind of came out, I want to say right before I came to Sweden, so 2010 to 2012 is like when Snus started to come out. A couple different things. They put it in a freezer, kind of like, or a refrigerator, like you can see in the stores where it's cooled, but it's called Snus. So we called it Snus, and you guys called it Snus. So that was really interesting at first. But the cans, and I'll see if I can put a picture in the video. I hate the cans. I think the company I would buy it from, it's like a little square, and it's really hard to open the can. And there's no place to put your empty snus. So when I started using this stuff, I just thought it was so intuitive that you have this little case, you can put your snus in here, you can close it, and you just put it back in your pocket, and you're not bothering anyone else. And so it's nice that you're not throwing it on the ground, you're not polluting, you have a place for it. I think that is fantastic as well. But I would say this, the American snus also, it just doesn't have the same kind of taste. It's not as good, and it doesn't feel as good in the mouth from what I experienced. Also, the pouches are a bit weird. They almost feel like they're like too long and too thick that it doesn't fit in your lips so well, and a lot of the pouches are like, I would say they're longer on the ends. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, they would be like this, but they'd be longer on the end, so there's a lot more of the paper that doesn't have anything in it, and it just fits really weird in your mouth. So what I liked about snus in the States, or snus, is that I think everybody chewing tobacco in the States is addicted to that, personally, should switch, because everything I've heard, there's less carcinogens in the form of this kind of snus. The way it's processed and made, it's not as dangerous for your mouth. It's not great for your mouth, and it's going to definitely cause your gums to recede, but it's a healthier option. So when I started finding this product and coming back to the States and I didn't see any Swedish snus, I was thinking, wow, if people chewing tobacco could just switch to this, it's a better option for everybody. Because I'll give you one example. I put in a chewing tobacco one time, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, just I wanted to try it instead of the Swedish snus. I put this stuff in called Copenhagen, which is really, really rough. And I swear to you, this chewing tobacco, it kind of cuts into your lip to let the nicotine go through, or at least that's how it feels. And I put it in my lip. I probably had it in for 30 minutes or so, just one time. And I swear to you, my lips were bleeding. They were super sore. And so I just kind of never really went back. So this last summer, when I went home, and this is kind of where I got on it, because I was off snus until I went home in the summer and then I got back on, was I got tempted to snus in the States, because this gas station I went to, boom, suddenly they had Swedish Match products. It was kind of cool to see, like, I went into the regular store and they had all the Swedish tobacco there, all of it. And I was able to have Swedish snus in the States. So it's become a lot more popular in the States as far as amongst people that chew tobacco. And I think it's very easy to understand why. It has to do with the fact that you're not bothering anyone else. You put it in, there's no spitting. It's a less gross way to do it. However, it's not socially acceptable in the States still as it is here. And I think that's the biggest difference. You know what's interesting too is that snus is, I think, illegal in most parts of Europe, or at least they don't sell it. But you can get it in Sweden, you can get it in Norway. I'm not sure about Denmark, and someone can answer that in the comments. But what's really interesting is that women snus. I'm saying a lot. I mean, I would guess that like 30% of the population snoozes between 20 and 30%. But it's just interesting to see that women do it too, because in the States that wouldn't be socially acceptable. But a lot of women here do use it. They usually have smaller pouches, from what I see, that the girls snus, and they're usually like in a mint flavor or something like that. But it has become more common. And so I think that's the most interesting thing to me in Sweden, is that it is common. And like I said, the Swedish government, or the studies they do, they say that it only raises your risk of pancreatic cancer by a small percentage, but it doesn't cause cancer. Now, I kind of trust that, but at the same time, it's also a big cash maker for Sweden. And I don't want you guys to take it the wrong way. I'm just saying, if they're the only country doing their studies, it would be interesting to see some other countries do studies on it as well, that don't have the profit money making that they can make. And I know some people will look at me and say I'm cynical, but it's just how I think. It's like, it's hard to come from the States and not always think that there's like an undertone. So I wouldn't be shocked if this could raise your risk of getting cancer a little bit in the mouth, or some mouth problems for sure. But overall, if you're going to do anything with nicotine, this is probably one of the best options you can do if you're already addicted. So if you're smoking cigarettes and you switch to snus, that's probably a healthier option for you, the people around you. So all in all, I think it's interesting. I will say that snus, like I said, if you quit, it is tough. The withdrawals is tough for sure. The last time I quit, it was quite rough, and you don't want to run out of snus if you're traveling throughout Europe. So it's interesting when a lot of Swedes travel, they'll stock up on a bunch of snus at once. Finally, I tried Snus Blaget for the first time because when I go to buy snus, it's like the main snus I always use was Granit Vit, and when I would say like, kan jag få en dos av Granit Vit tack? It's like I have a hard time saying Granit and Vit and them understanding me, and I was getting a little bit annoyed that like every time I'm trying to buy snus, if it's like a really old Swedish guy, like he doesn't understand anything I'm saying, and it was getting frustrated, and I did like a TikTok about it, and finally people asked me to try Snus Blaget, so I did, and they literally just deliver all the snus to your house. And what's cool about that is I was able to get a bunch of different snuses and try them, so I got like 20 different cans, and they're all different, and I thought it'd be fun to try a couple different options for right now. Also, I find that when I use really cheap snus, which I think is like, I don't want to talk bad on any snus, but you guys know what I'm talking about, the stuff that's like it's like 24 crowns a can. I find that snus, I end up snoozing a lot more because, like I said, I'm more addicted to having it in my mouth and just the feeling, and that snus goes bad after like 10 or 15 minutes. And I actually find that if you buy a mid-range snus, that's why I said this one was like a good one for me. It's like similar to General. It's not perfect, but it's similar. The pouch is nice, and like I can keep it in my mouth for like 40 minutes to an hour. And so I found that when I switched to the better snus, the better quality snus, I snooze less, and I'm able to keep it in longer. So I'm just curious what you guys think. I hope you didn't mind this video. I hope I don't come across as like a bad role model. I just want to be honest. I just thought it was silly all these years that I had used snus off and on, and I never talked about it because I always had the fear of somehow making it positive or making people do it. But I think at this point it's just such a part of Swedish society that it would be silly to not talk about it. I recommend not starting though if you don't do it, because it is addictive. There's no doubt about it. The hardest word to say in Swedish here is brunn from Kalenden, or whatever on the back that says it's addictive. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you were interested in me talking about snus, and maybe I do that every once in a while, and you'd be interested in hearing my take on different snuses or trying it, maybe I can do that once a month or something. Put that in the comments below. Make sure you smash that like button as well. See you guys in the next video. Hey,